So, to start, can you walk us through what your role looks like across Speakeasy marketing and DocketWorks?
Sure. Yeah, working at Speakeasy and DocketWorks, our two sister companies, is interesting. My role is editorial director. And so I wear a lot of hats, or one really big hat with a bunch of tiny hats inside of it. On the Speakeasy side of things, I was a senior editor at first. And so I was largely in charge of ensuring that our content met quality standards. And that meant I also had the opportunity to come in and develop those quality standards. So I was writing style guides for us and QA rubrics, and then going in and providing feedback and coaching to writers. And over the course of time, I got pulled in to do a lot of other work. So creating editorial calendars for our marketing clients, overseeing video content, interviews, talking about how do we bake in SEO strategies better here and address the emergence of AI and automate things and create workflows and et cetera, et cetera. So it grew from that kind of small point to really, really large overview strategy. How do we continue to improve things and implement systems that take the cognitive load off of each individual task and help us to provide really consistently nice offerings, across whatever it is that we're doing. And then when I got pulled into work on DocketWorks, my role there largely focuses on marketing. So I'm working with a team that we run email campaigns, and we're updating content for the site, putting things on LinkedIn, and going through, doing direct mail and a bunch of different avenues for that. So at this point in time, I do both. And I oversee a cross-functional team of about 12 people that handle everything from technical SEO fixes to inbound marketing to email newsletters to whatever else has words in it. The day-to-day is pretty different, but overall, I'm focusing on just helping people get good work done, looking at a lot of content and making sure that it's hitting the right points, and then having strategic conversations about what we want to say and how we want to say it.
So, when it comes to competing priorities, what does that look like in your day to day, in your world?
It can look a lot different. So on the marketing side of things, we have client-facing deadlines where we need to deliver things to our clients on the days that we've promised. We also have internal deadlines. We need to make sure that we're creating content by the time that we need it. So we're managing those. I've also got questions from team members coming in on, GChat or through emails. We're doing QA on different pieces of content that are rolling out. I may have meetings that are coming up either with clients, leadership, team members, et cetera. And then any of the actual work that I need to do to build something to make sure that things progress.
What would you say, what factors matter most when you're trying to choose between two tasks that are high priority?
There are a couple factors that matter. The most important factor would be who needs this? It's a lot easier when you're working, just in a client-facing role because that answer becomes very clear and very obvious. And of course, you don't want to push a deadline no matter what. But meeting deadlines is pretty critical. So who needs it and when is probably the biggest factor. Is this a client? Is it somebody on my team? How long is it going to take me to respond? What am I working on right now? And what does this have to do with? How much context switching am I gonna have to do? And then probably how much is a delay in my response going to hold up somebody else? So even if it's not, my deadline, if somebody's asking me a question and I need to get back to them so that they can do it, that would be a pretty big factor depending on what their deadline is as well.
Something interesting you mentioned was, that you'll have G chats coming in or questions from people in the department or whatever. That's pretty similar to how attorneys will have, could be interrupted by client calls. How do you kind of prevent that interruption from derailing your day or the current task that has priority?
It does depend on the day, and it depends on the nature of the, I don't want to call it interruption, but whatever it is that comes up. And it depends on the day that I'm working on it. So as I described, like I've set up my days so that Mondays I have blocked off where I very intentionally do not take meetings. And Mondays are my day where I go in and I audit my task sheet, I add new things to it, I make sure that my email is organized and it's cleared out properly, and that I just have like a really solid amount of like broader situational awareness of what's going on. And then Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I might be in meetings back to back all day, or at least pretty close to that. And then Thursdays and Fridays are a little bit more, Thursdays are more putting things together, Fridays are more wrapping things up and sending them out kind of a thing. So depending on which day I'm in, an interruption can look a lot different. On my deep focus days, so on Mondays, what I do is I'll block out basically like 45-minute chunks where I'm working on something, and then I'll go and I'll peek at my inbox or I'll peek at my chat. I also have a couple different lines of communication open. So for example, if something really urgent comes up, you're likely to see it, and you could send me a text or a signal message that would go through and would get to me faster than just a G chat or something, through that thread. So it's kind of like put the do not disturb on, but also put guardrails so that you're not completely unreachable. And then of course, like we have really good communication about what does urgency look like and what you're able to handle on your own, and how do you address a client and say, wonderful, like I'll get back to you by the end of the day tomorrow, but we'll look into this. And so there's a little bit of flexibility there. On the days when I'm in meetings, depending on who I'm in a meeting with, that can look a lot different. If it's with team members and we're doing strategy and these kind of bigger conversations, as you've seen, it's a lot easier for me sometimes to close those things out and just like dive into the strategy. If we're just kind of catching up and doing to-do stuff, I might get the text in and like ping it. And I'm a lot more conversational on those days when I'm conversational, unless I'm with a client, in which case everything else is off.
You've come up with these systems to help ensure that you're giving your best focus, your best attention to these tasks so you can complete them. Can you talk about, what led you to come up with these?
It's funny to think about because my role here grew very organically to where I went from basically managing QA over content production. So I was just processing like pages and pages and pages of books or articles or landing pages and whatnot. And that was a lot more insular, like it was deep focus work all the time, right? And I didn't have as many people pinging me. And then kind of when that started changing, I started feeling that pressure of going from being really in on something to someone asking you about something that has nothing to do with what you're in the middle of. And so having to completely change your mind about it. The emergence of the systems that I have kind of came from the fact that I really like to be focused on what I'm working on. And I really enjoy being able to like be present and give a full answer. And I noticed that when I was switching around too much, I wasn't as present in my answers. And I also wasn't as focused when I was able to get something done. Like there was always a little something like, does somebody need something, or is, this, that, or whatever. And so I started thinking about, how do you do both? I realized a lot of that has to do with communication and with just organization on my end. When I didn't take Mondays without meetings, then I never had a day where everybody knew that I was going to be working on strategy for me or for us, And so there wasn't that expectation of like, we know not to bother Taylor unless it's urgent, or not bother, but like we know not to ping Taylor on something. And so it really came down to this thing of like, how do I not eliminate distractions? Because that's not really reasonable to eliminate distractions, but how do I create an environment where I have the best opportunity to focus on what I'm doing, and then grow my ability to pay attention on things because of that. Like, you kind of need to like clear out some space and then figure out how to, like a lens, let yourself go in really close and then come back out.
When you put these practices into place, how did you communicate it in a way that protected your focus and it didn't cause people to be confused or thrown off by the change in your schedule, so to speak?
Totally. I think just being very upfront about what you're doing and why. I didn't just go into it, clearing out. I didn't cancel meetings on a random Monday or not show up. And it took a little bit of time to build. So there were kind of maybe like 3 pillars in building that. The first is identifying where I had opportunities to create more space for focused times or to bunch different kinds of tasks together. So I started looking at that and I started identifying how I could organize things. And then the second thing was figuring out how to create resources for people that could essentially be there when I couldn't. So we've got a trove of documents and documentation and strategy guides and brand guidelines and all of these different things that I've created over the last, 5 years of being here that answer a lot of questions that someone might have to ask me, where instead now somebody can go and just look at that. For the most part, it's of course not foolproof. Some things still come up, but generally if it passes through all of the documentation and then a chat with team members where I've got other people in the chat room together so they can collaborate. And if you still can't figure it out through those 2, then it kind of gets down to like, okay, how quickly do we need this? And do we poke the bubble, so to speak? And then the last portion of that is, again, just communicating really openly, being like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I take Mondays to audit all of my to-do lists and all of the projects that I'm working on. These are the kinds of things that I would like you to reach out to me for. These are the kinds of things you can go here for. If you really get stuck, reach out to Michael. If Michael really gets stuck, we've had those conversations as well about like, what looks urgent and what can you talk to me about? What can you send me a G-chat for or send me an email about versus when it's, rubber hitting the road and you need to shoot me a text and we need to go storm the castle.
So, let's kind of take a look back. What has the experience taught you that you wish you could go back and tell the you from 5 years ago that, about focus that you didn't understand?
I think what I would have told myself is that no matter how busy you are, you will always save time by taking a moment to reset and pause and gather that situational awareness before just ping-ponging your way in between a million different things. It feels like there's not enough time in the moment when you're really busy, and it feels impossible to stop, and it feels also selfish, I think, when you know that somebody's waiting on you for something. But even 30 seconds of just sitting for a second, before you hop into the next call or before you answer the thread or before you switch to the next thing. You've seen that when we have meetings sometimes and we're talking about really different topics and I'm like, okay, we're going to jump continents here. So let's just pause for a second and kind of gather. I wish I would have known that 5 years ago, that's honestly the thing that keeps things clean and it keeps things working.
How do you balance, taking breaks with getting the most amount of productive work done?
Yeah, it can feel, especially when you get tunnel vision on something, it can feel really like I need to be at my desk if I'm working, or I need to be actively working on something. I found that it's easy to get really overwhelmed when you're doing that and to lose a lot of context And it's also kind of like, you're almost like a net at that point, where if you're like in one area and you're gathering up all of this material, if you don't let it out before you go to the next thing, then you've already got all of that material. And so there's less room and the wires get crossed a little easier. So the balance of taking breaks and getting a lot of work done has to be, I think, pretty intentional. In back-to-back meetings and days like that, there's less room for breaks. It looks a little bit more like the 30-second pause before going into something, or intentionally building even just like a 5-minute window in between your meetings so that you can use the restroom or literally just stand up and walk around and grab some water, because that helps your body and mind kind of get a little fresher. When it's to do with working on, really big projects or really big tasks, if I'm working on building out a workflow that's going to take me 4 hours, then I might set a timer on my phone so that every 45 minutes to an hour it goes off. And I just get up and I go make some tea and I go grab something, look outside, check out the weather for a second, take a deep breath, and then I go back in. And it's funny because even though we've been talking a lot about how there's this UC Irvine study about how it takes about 25 minutes for you to gain focus again when you lose it on a task, that is a lot different from giving yourself a breather. And if you're not switching tasks, if you're staying kind of like mentally attuned to the larger thing that you're working at, then those little breaks become part of the work and give you fresh eyes so that when you come back and you look at the larger thing, you're able to catch mistakes or holes in your plan or anything else a lot quicker. Saves time in the end.
What do you think is a recurring thing that our clients have said that they struggle with the most when it comes to focus or protecting their attention on a specific task?
A lot of things come up when you say that, honestly. I've worked in a law firm, so I have that experience. Well, I was kind of the front line of defense because I was doing double duty as, front desk secretary, legal assistant, and helping with case filings and case management and whatnot. Honestly, it's like client calls and client management is really the biggest thing, because especially in a legal setting, you're dealing with people who are in, more often than not, incredibly sensitive situations, and their emotions are very heightened, and their urgency becomes your urgency in a way. And I've heard a lot of attorneys, talk about that. And then just, of course, about deadlines. Deadlines in court, they come with a weight that's pretty different than anywhere else.
What do you think is something that they could do, even something really small, to kind of improve their focus and without, a big major change to their firm?
I think there are two things that are really important. The first, and I really can't speak about this enough, is to find some way to do some kind of time blocking, however possible. And the second is to get somebody in your corner. Time blocking is important because it allows you to get into some kind of flow state and then really get important work done. If you're drafting a motion or going through, discovery or prepping interrogatories, you're gonna need to get in there. And it's gonna take you so much longer to do it if, every 15 minutes or whatever the interval might be, you've got somebody pinging you on a case that has nothing to do with what you're looking at. And it doesn't have to be crazy. I mean, even a 30-minute time block is better than none at all, right? And then the other thing I would say, I was in my role for a while and it was just me figuring everything else out. There wasn't anybody to help field incoming questions or things like that. And you and I have worked together now pretty closely for 2.5 years, something like that. And it's been a game changer. Like the amount of work that I'm able to accomplish now, I wouldn't have been able to do before I had somebody who was able to understand the work that we're doing together and the importance of each task and the urgency of each task, and then kind of like set me up to swing, you know? And of course we do that for each other. You know, as I was mentioning earlier on deep focus days, the fact that I've got processes in place and people in place who can be there so that I don't have to be every single moment of every single day, that's really the key.
I talk to a lot of attorneys, there's that fear that if they do what you're suggesting, kind of put people in place to kind of take some of that mental burden so that they can focus on things, that there will be a failing of some kind, or like something will get diminished. Can you speak on that? Have you noticed a failing since you're not handling everything on your own?
Yeah, it seems like things work pretty well. I know for a fact there was a really uncomfortable moment for me when my role was switching from handling deliverables to interfacing with clients and figuring out how those priorities worked. And the fact that I had been the person that put my eyes on every period and every comma and every headline, which is also a lot when you consider the volume of clients that we had and the volume of content that we were producing. You know, when that got lumped in with also strategy calls for book clients and interviews about this, that, and whatever, and incoming questions from clients that we want to make sure we're answering quickly and answering fully, I feel like that was more of a breaking point or a failure point, if you will. And I was really hesitant to pass off that like final red pen to somebody else and say like, no, it's okay, you can do this. Just because I felt like it was ultimately, as the leader of the team, a reflection of me. And that's true. But in the end, if I were to have continued to try and do it all myself, I would have been the one making the mistakes. And I'm really, really grateful now. Now I get to have conversations about the ethos behind what we're doing instead of, fixing each individual thing. Not that there were a ton of errors, because the people that we work with are great, but you know what I mean? Like, you get to instead come in and have higher level conversations and say, hey, we want to do this now. And like, I can go in and create documentation around different standards and procedures because I'm not just going in and doing it every time. Yeah. So I totally understand the hesitation in letting something like that go be its own and have a life outside of you. But I also don't think that there's any other way to do it.